Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to help you understand context in the war in Ukraine. Today, I'll be talking about something a little bit different, but related directly to the war in Ukraine. Now, if you don't know, because you haven't been watching me long enough, I'm a conservative Republican. Now, as a conservative Republican, I don't know who to be more frustrated with here between these cast of characters that you see on your screen. And we're going to talk about that and talk about how we should process some things. Okay, so let's start here. This is Ann Coulter. Someone tweeted, Ann Coulter has been right about Trump in the past. I'd love to hear what he needs to do, in her opinion, to take America back. Maybe he could die. Okay, so what did that do when she replied, maybe he could die? So that turned MAGA Republicans rabid on her and turned liberals into thinking she's great. But of course, don't think she's great if you're a liberal, because she wrote all these books, including In Trump We Trust, How to Talk to Liberals, subtitled If You Must, and other, she's been nothing but a firebrand her entire life, and so this is just more firebrandy kind of discussion. And I'm not sure that that's the right tack to take if you're trying to persuade someone. So let's look at Al Gore, who I generally don't agree with, but here he's absolutely right. He was in his interview and he said, I think it's really important for people to maintain respect for his supporters. He's talking about Trump supporters. But this works both ways. And this is the way that we should interact with others, regardless of whether they're in our party or the other party. Many of them are using Trump as a vehicle to express their anger. I think that's profound. I think it's right. That's why they're attracted to Trump. They don't like the way things are going, and so they're using Trump as their message back to the system that this is not going the right direction. But more importantly, I think it was a terrible, terrible thing when Hillary talked about Trump supporters as a basket of deplorables. That made everyone on that side of the equation very angry. And you shouldn't do it the other way as well. I'm arguing that as well. But that's right. We should be respecting each other and thinking through how to respect each other. But the onus is on us conservatives in order to be speaking to that, because it's not received the same way when it's coming from the left. It's perceived as an attack as opposed to loyal opposition. Let me continue here. So here's Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is an ardent Trump supporter and loves Tucker Carlson and things along these lines. Democrats and their propagandists in the media are spasming at the prospect of Tucker Carlson interviewing Putin. Okay, you can already see how that's going to go. Mr. Putin, why are you so dreamy? Why is it that the big bad Ukrainian Nazis are doing what they're doing, and how are you going to stop them? You can almost imagine what this is going to be like. They feel entitled to the position of gatekeeper, and I believe that they are the ones who tell you what to think and believe. They hate when someone like Tucker goes off script. We have a free press in this country, and it's people like Tucker Carlson who we depend on to speak truth. Okay, so she's kind of right and kind of very wrong. So she's wrong about the truth part, but we do have a free speech ethos in this country, and thank God that we do. And we have a free press, and thank God that we do. And nobody was really upset with Megyn Kelly when she was interviewing Putin 5 years ago, but that's because she was also pressing Putin in such a way that he was pretty angry and didn't want to have any Americans interview him for a long time. But they're willing to interview with Tucker Carlson because they know that Tucker Carlson's in a very different place. Now, Tucker is not going to be doing something useful. I think he's going to be making the situation worse. And that's my read of it. I don't know. I haven't seen the interview yet. It hasn't been out. But I think that's probably fair. But then we have to wrestle with that and diffuse it, and it should be conservatives particularly who are speaking up against it. I hope this has a significant backlash against Tucker. I don't know that that'll happen. Jake Bro is an ardent critic of Tucker Carlson, and by the way, when I'm addressing this, many times people will contact me and say, you know, Jake Bro said this. What are you going to say back? I'm not. Jake does great work supporting Ukraine. I'm not going to take anything away from him about that. Now, he has a position, I have a position. We don't necessarily see eye to eye, but I'm not going to start a fight with him because he's upset with somebody who he should be upset with. So here's his tweet. Tucker Carlson has been getting the VIP treatment on his current trip to Russia. Tucker Carlson is a Kremlin sock puppet and has been pushing Kremlin propaganda to Western audiences for almost 10 years now. He admitted live on air, "Why shouldn't I root for Russia?" Which I am. In this interview, Tucker Carlson says, why shouldn't I root for Russia? That's right. And Jake Bro's calling it out. He actually said that.
That's totally correct.
Now, he's not the only one saying that. And please hear me about this, because many of the comments in the thread below are like, these Republicans are this, these Republicans are that. Hold on. Not all Republicans are like that. And I know people will say, I'm too kind to my party. I try to be kind to the other side. You've never heard me on any of these videos be mean to Joe Biden. Yes, I've talked about different policy things, but you've never heard me do that. And I would ask that you do the same thing. We need to be more civil in our discourse if we're going to get anything done. Here's Republicans against Trump. Same video. They're talking about the same exact thing, and they're calling it out. And they ought to be calling it out. And if you're a conservative, the onus is on you to call this kind of thing out. Now, if you want to know if you're on the right side or wrong side of an equation, if Russian state media is praising you, you're probably on the wrong side. Here's what happened when Tucker was fired. And now to some sad news from the country, which, to quote Lavrov, calls itself the most free and the most just in the world. That's to say, the USA. The TV channel Fox News has torn up its contract with one of the channel's best-known presenters, our favorite, Tucker Carlson. Tucker was driven out not for his unprofessionalism, let alone for his disastrous ratings. Tucker's show was enormously popular among ordinary Americans. He was fired for being perhaps the only American journalist who told the truth. Now that's not true on its face. He's not the only journalist who told the truth, and he actually isolated a lot of conservatives who would turn off Tucker at night because of his increasingly pro-Russian, anti-Ukraine stance, isolationist, populist kind of positions. So that's not true, but that's the way they're presenting it. Now, let's turn to Trump himself. Trump said the other day, and this video, you can go look at it, Republicans Against Trump. You'll find it here where he says, think of President Xi, central casting, brilliant guy. He runs 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. Smart, brilliant, everything perfect. And the question here is, do conservatives really want a man who praises and admires a Chinese communist dictator to be the GOP nominee for president? Conservatives really need to be wrestling with this question because that's not conservative principles. I don't know what exactly that is, but that's not conservatism. And we need to be reacting against that. Now, I keep putting the burden on conservatives, and there's a reason for that. Richard Feynman had a quote about, if you see it this way, you need to bend over backwards in order to test your assumptions. Let me read what it's saying. The first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. To avoid self-deception, scientists must bend over backward to report data that cast doubt on their own theories. And in the same way, if you're a conservative, you need to look extra hard at what the Republicans are doing. If you're a liberal on the left side of the spectrum, you need to be looking extra hard at what Joe Biden is doing and what the Democrats are doing. Are they really doing what you hope that they would be doing to support Ukraine? Now, this is a one-issue channel, and we're just talking about Ukraine, but I think this is a fair thing for all of us to be thinking through and trying to see. Okay, now we come to Mike Johnson. U.S. Republican lawmakers announced bill that provides more military aid to Israel, but none for Ukraine. So what does this mean? The Republican lawmakers in the U.S. House of Representatives said that they would move forward on a new package of military aid to Israel that leaves out more assistance for Ukraine. The top Republican in the House, Mike Johnson, that's a Speaker of the House, unveiled a plan in a letter to Republican colleagues on February 3. The proposal sets up legislative clash with a competing measure being finalized in the Senate. That measure pairs major U.S. changes to U.S. immigration policies with a wider package of military aid for both Israel and Ukraine. Okay, so what does this practically mean? So it means that the House is putting this bill forward. Does it mean that the Senate will have to go along with it? No. It could be dead on arrival in the Senate, just like he was talking about the other bill, dead on arrival in the House. So what will happen if that is the case? A number of different scenarios might be. Maybe there's a bill for Israel, a bill for Ukraine, and a bill for the border that are independently split and then passed by the Senate and then signed by Biden. Maybe he just passes a bill for Israel and none for Ukraine and it goes nowhere. Maybe there's the Senate bill comes over to the House and they actually decide to work something out with the Senate and they pass that and it goes forward. But Biden has to sign whatever. And if they're not going to get anything for Ukraine. They're probably not going to get anything for Israel. And of course, they all know this. It's part of, I don't want to say a game, but this is the way that the political stuff works. And this is the reason that politicians have such a terrible reputation, because while some things are so important, they're kind of playing games with it. So what can you do? So that's the important thing. By the way, I wouldn't look at this and say, well, see, Ukraine's doomed because of that. Don't do that. It's part of a political game, for lack of a better word, but political process that they have to work out, and they're going to work out eventually. Okay, so you can write your congressman. I just did. I wrote my congressman and both of my senators in 10 minutes. So you Google write your congressman, and then you'll find house.government, or you'll find write your senator and contacting U.S. senators at senate.gov. And then you'll put in your zip code, and it will tell you go to this one, and you'll click on there and find the contact form. It takes 10 minutes. What do you write when you write your congressman? Well, I'd say something like this. Congressman so-and-so. I voted for you in the last election, if you did. I'm writing to, if you didn't, just take that line out. I'm writing to urge you to support Ukraine militarily. The U.S. must not turn away from a democracy invaded by an imperialistic neighbor. Please let me know how you plan to vote on this. I will be watching to see your record on this crucial issue. Thank you for all you do. Now, the I'll be watching may sound a little ominous, but it's really not. I mean, it's just telling them that you're informed. And thank you for all you do is just to be kind. You can be kind even to an opponent, and it's okay. It's all right. You're asking them. Now, put this in the description below. So please, you can cut and paste and then just change the words a little bit. But this is all you need to do. You need to register your support, and they're going to be tallying the number of people that are pro-Ukraine or anti-Ukraine. That's how they're going to shape their decisions. Now, not always, but in general, if there is a lot of people supporting something, they listen to that. So the next best thing that you can do is also provide this kind of information to someone else who is already prone to support Ukraine, who's willing to do that for their congressmen and their senators. I know this was a long one, but this was important. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. I really do appreciate that. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.